Welcome, dear friend. Welcome to this quiet corner of the night where stories drift like gentle waves across the darkness. I'm here to guide you through a tale that has whispered across the centuries, a mystery wrapped in salt air and starlight, told not to startle or frighten but to soothe your mind as you prepare for rest. Tonight, we journey together to the vast Atlantic Ocean of 1872, where a merchant ship called the Mary Celeste became one of history's most enduring puzzles. This is a story without violence, without fear, simply a gentle mystery that has captivated minds for over a century and a half. Like all the best mysteries, it asks more questions than it answers, and in that questioning we find a strange kind of peace. Picture yourself now as a passenger on this journey of wonder. Feel the soft rocking motion of waves beneath you, hear the distant call of seabirds, and breathe in the clean, endless air of the open ocean. This is your time to let go of the day's concerns, to allow your mind to drift with the tide of this story. If you find comfort in these midnight tales, these gentle explorations of history's quiet mysteries, I invite you to become part of our growing circle of listeners. Just tap that subscribe button and let each new story arrive like a ship returning to port, bringing with it the treasures of forgotten times and unsolved questions. But for now, close your eyes if you wish. Let your breathing slow to match the rhythm of distant waves. We're about to embark on a voyage that began more than 150 years ago, when the world was lit by oil lamps and warmed by coal fires, when ships were the highways of the earth, and when the ocean held secrets that it has never surrendered. The Mary Celeste waits for us now, floating somewhere between history and legend, between the known and the unknowable. She carries no cargo of fear, only wonder. She sails not through storms of terror, but through the calm seas of mystery. And tonight, we sail with her. So settle back, dear listener. Let the gentle motion of this story carry you towards sleep as we explore one of the sea's most beautiful enigmas. The Mary Celeste has been waiting patiently for us, suspended in time, like a ship in amber, her sails still catching the wind of our imagination. Are you ready? Then let us begin this peaceful journey into mystery, where questions are more valuable than answers, and wonder is the only treasure we seek to find. In the year 1872, the world moved at the pace of wind and tide. Before the great steamships would dominate the oceans, before the telegraph would shrink distances to mere moments, there existed a gentler time when commerce and communication traveled on wings of canvas across the vast blue highways of the earth. Picture, if you will, the harbors of this era. In the early morning mist, you might have seen dozens of sailing vessels, their masts rising like a forest of wooden trees, their rigging a delicate web of rope and dream. The air would be filled with the creaking of timber, the gentle lapping of water against hulls, and the soft conversations of sailors preparing for journeys that might last weeks or months. These were the merchant ships that carried the world's goods from port to port. Barrels of raw alcohol from New York to European refineries, bolts of cloth from mills to markets, spices and coffee, and manufactured goods crossing oceans with the patience of tides. Each ship was a small floating world unto itself, carrying not just cargo but hopes, ambitions, and the quiet courage of those who made their living from the sea. The captains of these vessels were often family men, practical souls who understood both the moods of the ocean and the mathematics of profit. They were navigators who could read the stars like a familiar book, Men who could sense weather changes in the color of the sky or the behavior of seabirds. These mariners lived in a world where intuition and experience were as valuable as compass and chart. Imagine the routine aboard such a vessel during a typical voyage. The days would begin before dawn, with the gentle sounds of the crew stirring in their quarters. The ship's bell would mark the passing hours, its bronze voice carrying across the water like a metallic heartbeat. The crew would tend to the sails, adjust the rigging, and maintain the endless small tasks that kept a sailing ship moving safely through the water. Meals were simple affairs: salt pork, hardtack biscuits, perhaps some preserved vegetables if the ship was well provisioned. Fresh water was precious, rationed carefully for the journey ahead. The crew would gather for these meals in the ship's galley or on deck if weather permitted, sharing not just food, but stories, concerns about family left behind, and speculations about the voyage ahead. In the evening, as the sun painted the ocean in shades of gold and crimson, the ship would settle into its nighttime rhythm. Some crew members would remain on watch, their eyes scanning the horizon for other vessels or signs of changing weather. Below deck, others would rest in their narrow bunks, lulled to sleep by the constant, gentle motion of the ship and the soft sounds of water against the hull. The ocean itself was both highway and home to these merchant sailors. It could be as calm as a mirror, reflecting clouds and sky in perfect stillness, or it could roll in great smooth swells that lifted the ship like a cork and set it down again with infinite gentleness. Weather was always a consideration, not feared, but respected, watched, and planned for, with the careful attention of those who understood that the sea, while not malicious, was certainly powerful. This was the world of the Mary Celeste, a world where journeys were measured not in hours, but in weeks, where communication with home was impossible once a ship left port, and where each voyage was an act of faith in the winds, the vessel, and the skills of those who sailed her. In this peaceful maritime realm, ships occasionally passed each other on the vast ocean, their crews exchanging waves or signal flags, brief moments of human connection in the immensity of water and sky. Sometimes, vessels would speak to each other more formally, captains sharing news, weather reports, or simply the comfort of human conversation after weeks of isolation. It was into this world of gentle commerce and patient travel that the Mary Celeste sailed in the autumn of 1872, carrying her cargo and her crew toward a mystery that would outlast all of them. Let us now meet the people who made the Mary Celeste more than just a vessel, the human hearts that gave her purpose and life. At the center of this story stands Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, a man of 37 years whose life embodied the steady reliability that made the merchant marine possible. Benjamin Briggs was not an adventurer seeking glory on the high seas, but rather a careful, methodical mariner who approached sailing as both profession and calling. Born into a seafaring family in Massachusetts, he had learned the ocean's moods from his father and brothers, all of whom made their living from the sea. He was known among ship owners as a temperate captain, a man who neither drank alcohol nor allowed it aboard his vessels, believing that clear heads made for safe voyages. Picture Captain Briggs as he might have appeared on any quiet evening aboard ship. A man of medium height with thoughtful eyes, perhaps standing on deck as the sun set, hands clasped behind his back, watching the play of light on the water. He was the sort of captain who knew each member of his crew by name, who understood that a ship's safety depended not just on navigation and seamanship, but on the trust and cooperation of everyone aboard. But this voyage was special for Captain Briggs, for he was not traveling alone. With him was his beloved wife, Sarah Elizabeth Briggs, a woman of intelligence and gentle strength. Sarah was no stranger to sea travel. She had accompanied her husband on previous voyages, understanding that the weeks or months apart were harder to bear than the risks of ocean travel together. She was a woman who could adapt to the cramped quarters of a ship's cabin, finding ways to make even the smallest space feel like home. Their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda, completed this floating family. Little Sophia would have brought a special kind of joy to the ship, her laughter echoing in the companionways, her curiosity about the vast water surrounding them, her delight in simple pleasures like watching dolphins play in the ship's wake or marveling at the endless parade of clouds across the sky. Imagine the gentle domestic scenes that would have unfolded aboard the Mary Celeste. Sarah reading to little Sophia in their cabin, while the ship rocked them like a great cradle, or the family taking their evening walks on deck. Sophia tottering between her parents as they pointed out the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Captain Briggs would have been not just the ship's master during these moments, but a husband and father, perhaps lifting his daughter to his shoulders so she could better see the sunset, painting the ocean in brilliant colors. The crew of the Mary Celeste was small but experienced, consisting of 7 men who represented the practical, steady sort of sailors that merchant vessels required. There was Albert Richardson, the first mate, a man in his 28 years who served as Captain Briggs' second in command. Richardson would have been responsible for the day-to-day management of the crew and the implementation of the captain's orders. The brothers, Volkert and Bos Lorentzen, served as seamen, their German origins reflecting the international nature of merchant shipping in that era. Andrew Gilling and Arian Martins rounded out the crew, men whose names and ages have come down to us through history, but whose personalities and stories remain as mysterious as the fate that befell them all. These were not pirates or desperados, but working men who had chosen the sea as their profession. They would have risen early each morning to tend to the ship's needs, checking rigging, adjusting sails, and maintaining the countless details that kept a sailing vessel moving safely through the water. Their conversations would have been of practical matters, weather observations, navigation concerns, memories of home, and plans for their next voyages. In the evenings, the crew might have gathered to share stories or songs, finding companionship in their shared isolation from the rest of the world. Perhaps they played cards or dice, told tales of previous voyages, or simply enjoyed the peaceful satisfaction of watching the stars emerge in the clear ocean sky. The ship's cook would have been responsible for preparing meals from the preserved foods that sustained ocean voyages: salt pork, hardtack biscuits, dried beans, and whatever fresh provisions they had managed to preserve since leaving port. Meal times would have been social occasions, bringing together the small community that had formed aboard the Mary Celeste. Captain Briggs maintained a ship's log, as was customary, recording their daily position, weather conditions, and any notable events of the voyage. These entries would have been brief and practical, the routine observations of a careful mariner. His progress across the ocean. They speak to us now of ordinary days and peaceful progress, giving no hint of the extraordinary mystery that was approaching. This, then, was the human cargo of the Mary Celeste. Not just a crew, but a small floating community bound together by shared purpose and mutual dependence. They were people with hopes and plans, with families waiting for them in distant ports, with stories and dreams of their own. In just a few short weeks, they would all vanish from the historical record as completely as if they had never existed, leaving behind only questions and wonder. On the morning of December 4th, 1872, The brigantine Dei Gratia was making steady progress through the Atlantic waters between Portugal and Gibraltar. Her captain, David Morehouse, stood on deck enjoying the pleasant sailing conditions when something on the horizon caught his attention. Through the gentle swells of the ocean, another sailing vessel appeared to be moving in an unusual manner. The ship was perhaps 5 or 6 miles distant, close enough for Captain Morehouse to observe through his spyglass, yet far enough away that details remained unclear. What struck him immediately was something indefinable about the vessel's behavior. She seemed to be sailing, yet not quite under control. Her movements had a quality that experienced mariners recognize instinctively: the difference between a ship being sailed and a ship merely drifting with wind and current. As the Dei Gratia drew closer over the next hour, Captain Morehouse could see that the distant vessel was a brigantine similar to his own. Her sails were set, though somewhat disheveled, and she appeared to be seaworthy. Yet something was fundamentally wrong with the scene. No figures moved on her deck. No smoke rose from her galley. No response came to the Dei Gratia's signals. The closer they approached, the more puzzling the situation became. Captain Morehouse recognized the vessel. It was the Mary Celeste, commanded by his old friend Benjamin Briggs. The two captains had dined together just days before both ships departed New York Harbor. Morehouse knew Briggs to be a careful, competent mariner, not the sort of captain who would abandon his duties or allow his ship to sail unmanned. When the Dei Gratia finally came alongside the Mary Celeste, the mystery deepened rather than resolved. The ship appeared to be in good condition, floating normally and showing no signs of damage that would have forced an emergency abandonment. Her cargo hatches were secure, her rigging intact, though somewhat loose, and her hull sound. Yet she was utterly, completely deserted. Captain Morehouse called out across the water, his voice carrying clearly in the calm air. "Ahoy, Mary Celeste!" But no answer came back. Only the soft sounds of wind and water, the gentle creaking of timber, and the almost musical tinkle of loose rigging moving in the breeze. A boarding party was prepared with the careful attention that such an unusual situation demanded. First, Mate Oliver DeVoe of the Dei Gratia led 2 seamen across the gap between the ships, climbing aboard the Mary Celeste with the mixture of curiosity and caution that prudent sailors bring to unexpected situations. What they found aboard the Mary Celeste was perhaps more unsettling than any signs of disaster would have been. The ship was neat, orderly, and apparently abandoned in the middle of routine activities. In the captain's cabin, they found the ship's papers scattered but present, including charts showing the vessel's course across the Atlantic. The ship's chronometer and sextant were missing, instruments that any abandoning crew would naturally take with them for navigation. The cargo hold revealed nearly 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol, the Mary Celeste's commercial cargo bound for Genoa. 9 of these barrels had apparently leaked or been opened, their contents missing, but the vast majority of the cargo remained secure and undisturbed. There were no signs of theft or piracy. If anyone had boarded the ship with criminal intent, they had taken nothing of obvious value. In the ship's galley, the boarding party found evidence of ordinary shipboard life interrupted. There were dishes that appeared to have been used for meals, food stores that seemed adequate for the journey, and cooking implements arranged as if the ship's cook had simply stepped away from his duties temporarily. A bag of flour sat open, as though someone had been interrupted while preparing bread. The crew's quarters told a similar story of ordinary life suddenly suspended. Personal belongings remained in place. clothing, small treasures, and the modest possessions that sailors carried with them on long voyages. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of panic or hasty departure. It was as though the Mary Celeste's crew had simply evaporated, like morning mist. Most puzzling of all was the ship's lifeboat. It was missing, apparently launched in an orderly fashion rather than torn away by storm or accident. This suggested that Captain Briggs and his crew had made a deliberate decision to abandon their vessel. Yet, the Mary Celeste showed no signs of the sort of emergency that would have prompted such a drastic action. The ship's compass was found askew, pointing in the wrong direction, but this could easily have been the result of weeks of unattended drifting. Her wheel moved freely, responding to the gentle pressure of wind and wave. In the captain's cabin, they found a sword beneath the bed, but it showed no signs of having been drawn in anger or desperation. Perhaps most mysteriously, the ship's log showed entries up to November 25th, indicating normal progress and routine observations. The final entry was unremarkable, simply noting the ship's position and weather conditions, written in the careful hand of a professional mariner, recording another ordinary day at sea. As the boarding party completed their examination of the Mary Celeste, they faced a puzzle that seemed to have no logical solution. Here was a seaworthy vessel with valuable cargo, abandoned by her crew for no apparent reason, drifting aimlessly through the Atlantic like a ghost ship from maritime legend. The decision was made to sail the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, where the proper maritime authorities could investigate this strange discovery. And so the mystery began its journey through history, carried by two ships across the gentle swells of the Atlantic toward a puzzle that would never be completely solved. In the days and weeks following the discovery of the Mary Celeste, investigators, journalists, and maritime experts began weaving theories like sailors mending nets, each strand of possibility connected to others, yet none creating a pattern that could definitively explain the mystery of the abandoned ship. The first, and perhaps most natural assumption, was piracy. The Atlantic shipping lanes of 1872 were not entirely free from the threat of maritime criminals, and the Mary Celeste's cargo of alcohol could have been attractive to those seeking valuable goods to steal. Yet this theory unraveled almost immediately upon examination. Pirates interested in the ship's cargo would hardly have left 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol behind, taking only 9 barrels and ignoring other valuable items aboard the vessel. Moreover, the ship showed no signs of violence or struggle. There were no damaged areas where pirates might have forced their way aboard, no bloodstains or weapons bearing evidence of conflict, no signs that the crew had attempted to defend themselves or their ship. Pirates, had they been involved, would likely have taken the Mary Celeste herself, a valuable prize that could be sold or used for their own purposes. Some investigators wondered if mutiny might explain the mystery. Perhaps the crew had risen against Captain Briggs, seized control of the ship, and then fled when they realized the magnitude of their crime. But this theory, too, failed to account for the evidence. Captain Briggs was known as a fair and temperate commander, the sort of master who inspired loyalty rather than rebellion. His wife and infant daughter were aboard, an unlikely scenario for a mutinous crew to navigate. And again, why would mutineers abandon a perfectly good ship with valuable cargo? Weather provided another avenue of speculation. The Atlantic in November could certainly produce storms capable of frightening even experienced sailors. Perhaps a sudden squall or the threat of severe weather had convinced Captain Briggs to order his crew into the lifeboat as a precautionary measure. They might have intended to ride out the storm in their smaller boat and return to the ship once conditions improved. This theory gained some credibility from the missing lifeboat and the apparently deliberate nature of the abandonment. The crew had taken the ship's chronometer and sextant, navigation instruments they would need in a lifeboat, but unnecessary if they were planning to go down with their ship. Yet the Mary Celeste showed no evidence of having weathered a severe storm. Her cargo was secure, her rigging largely intact, and her hull sound. What storm could have been threatening enough to force abandonment, yet gentle enough to leave no trace? A more technical theory emerged from examination of the ship's cargo. Denatured alcohol, while not as volatile as pure ethanol, could still produce dangerous fumes under certain conditions. Perhaps gas from the damaged barrels had created an explosive atmosphere in the ship's hold, forcing Captain Briggs to order immediate evacuation. The crew might have planned to allow time for the fumes to dissipate before returning to their vessel. This alcohol vapor theory accounted for the orderly abandonment and the crew's decision to take navigation instruments with them. It explained why they would leave a seaworthy ship, not from panic, but from rational fear of explosion. Yet, it raised its own questions. Why hadn't the crew returned to the Mary Celeste? Had they miscalculated the wind patterns and been unable to relocate their ship? Had some accident befallen them while they waited for safety? Maritime historians propose that a seaquake might have provided the answer. These underwater earthquakes could create sudden, violent movements of the ocean's surface without leaving obvious physical damage to ships. Perhaps such a phenomenon had convinced Captain Briggs that his vessel was in immediate danger of sinking, prompting him to order abandonment before the true nature of the threat became clear. The timing of such an event could explain the mystery. A seaquake violent enough to terrify the crew, but brief enough to leave no lasting damage to the Mary Celeste herself. In their fear, the crew might have launched the lifeboat hastily, only to find themselves unable to return to their ship due to wind, current, or subsequent accident. Some theorists look to human psychology for answers. Perhaps Captain Briggs, faced with some perceived crisis aboard his ship, had made an error in judgment, a mistake that transformed a manageable problem into a fatal decision. Even experienced mariners could misinterpret situations, especially when the safety of their families was at stake. The presence of Sarah Briggs and little Sophia aboard the Mary Celeste added emotional weight to this theory. Captain Briggs might have been more cautious, more quick to perceive threats, with his wife and daughter depending on his decisions. A situation that might have been manageable with an all-male crew could have seemed intolerable when family safety was considered. Yet another school of thought suggested that the mystery might have no dramatic explanation at all. Perhaps the Mary Celeste had simply been abandoned due to a series of small problems that, combined, made continuing the voyage seem impossibly difficult. Sickness among the crew, equipment failures, navigational uncertainties, individually minor but collectively overwhelming. Insurance fraud entered the discussions, though this theory struggled against the character of Captain Briggs and the financial realities of the situation. The Mary Celeste was insured, but not for enough money to make deliberate destruction profitable, especially considering the loss of the ship's cargo and the unlikelihood of the crew's survival in a small lifeboat in November Atlantic waters. As the months and years passed, the theories multiplied like waves spreading from a stone dropped in still water. Each new investigator brought fresh perspective, new possibilities, and new questions. Writers and journalists crafted increasingly elaborate explanations, some bordering on the fantastical. Sea monsters, supernatural intervention, kidnapping by foreign agents. But perhaps the most profound theory was also the simplest, that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, that the ocean keeps certain secrets as carefully as it keeps the bones of ancient ships. The Mary Celeste might represent one of those moments when human understanding meets its natural limits, when the vastness of the sea and the complexity of human decision-making combine to create questions that have no definitive answers. In the end, each theory tells us as much about the theorists as about the mystery itself. Our need to find explanations, our discomfort with uncertainty, our faith that every puzzle must have a solution waiting to be discovered. More than a century and a half has passed since the Mary Celeste was found drifting empty through the Atlantic. Yet her mystery continues to sail through our collective imagination with the persistence of a tide that never turns. She has become more than a maritime puzzle. She has transformed into a symbol of the unknowable, a gentle reminder that some questions may be more valuable than their answers. The story of the Mary Celeste spread through the world's newspapers like ripples from a stone cast in still water. Each retelling added new details, some factual, others emerging from the fertile ground of human imagination. Writers and journalists, unsatisfied with the simple mystery of an abandoned ship, began to embellish the tale with elements of drama and supernatural suggestion. Arthur Conan Doyle, later to become famous for his Sherlock Holmes stories, wrote a fictionalized account of the Mary Celeste in 1884. His story, J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement, transformed the mysterious abandonment into a tale of racial revenge and violence, a dramatic narrative that captured public attention but strayed far from the peaceful reality of the actual discovery. These fictional elaborations became so intertwined with the historical facts that separating truth from imagination became increasingly difficult. The Mary Celeste of legend grew to include details that never existed. Tales of half-eaten meals, still warm on the table, of personal belongings arranged as if their owners had just stepped away for a moment, of supernatural encounters and ghostly apparitions. Yet the real mystery remained more compelling than any fictional embellishment. Here was a genuine puzzle from history, a moment when the normal patterns of cause and effect seemed to have been suspended, leaving only questions floating on an empty sea. Maritime museums around the world began to display artifacts and information about the Mary Celeste, recognizing that her story represented something fundamental about humanity's relationship with the ocean. She became a focal point for discussions about the limits of knowledge, the persistence of mystery in an age of increasing scientific understanding. The case attracted the attention of serious maritime historians and investigators who attempted to apply modern analytical techniques to the century-old puzzle. They examined weather records from 1872, studied ocean current patterns, and analyzed the chemical properties of the ship's cargo in search of explanations that might have eluded earlier investigators. Some researchers focused on the human element of the mystery, studying the personality and background of Captain Briggs in hope of understanding what decision-making process might have led to the ship's abandonment. They found a careful, conservative mariner, exactly the sort of captain who would be least likely to abandon a seaworthy vessel without compelling reason. Others examined the physical evidence with modern forensic techniques. Though the passage of time had made such analysis difficult, the Mary Celeste herself had been sold after the Gibraltar investigation and had continued sailing under different owners until she was eventually wrecked off the coast of Haiti in 1885. A mundane end for a ship that had achieved legendary status. The mystery found new life in the 20th century as radio, television, and film brought the story to larger audiences. Documentary filmmakers, attracted by the visual possibilities of the empty ship and the dramatic questions surrounding her abandonment, created programs that introduced the Mary Celeste to generations who might never have heard of her otherwise. Each new medium added its own interpretation to the story. Radio programs emphasized the eerie silence of the abandoned vessel. Television documentaries focused on the visual mystery of empty cabins and deserted decks. Internet forums and websites allowed amateur investigators to share theories and debate possibilities with enthusiasts from around the world. The Mary Celeste also became a touchstone for discussions about the nature of historical truth. Her story illustrated how facts could be transformed by retelling, how mystery could grow more compelling than certainty, and how the gaps in historical records could become as significant as the information they contained. Modern maritime safety experts examined the case as an example of the decision-making challenges faced by ship captains, using the Mary Celeste as a case study in crisis management and risk assessment. What factors might lead a competent commander to make the ultimate maritime decision to abandon ship? The psychological aspects of the mystery attracted attention from researchers interested in group behavior under stress. How does fear spread through a small, isolated community like a ship's crew? What role do family members play in maritime decision-making? How do experienced professionals respond when familiar situations become unfamiliar? Despite all this analysis, investigation, and speculation, the Mary Celeste has kept her secrets intact. Each new theory, each fresh investigation, each modern technique applied to the century-old puzzle has added to our understanding of the context and possibilities. But none has provided the definitive answer that would close the book on this maritime mystery. Perhaps this persistence of mystery serves a purpose in our increasingly explained world. The Mary Celeste offers us a gentle enigma, a puzzle without violence or horror, a question without urgency or threat. She reminds us that uncertainty can be beautiful, that not every story needs an ending, and that some of the most compelling narratives are those that trust us to complete them with our own imagination. In maritime museums, her story continues to draw visitors who stand before displays of ship models and historical documents, trying to visualize that moment of discovery when the Dei Gratia's crew first glimpsed the empty brigantine drifting through the Atlantic swells. The mystery connects us across time to that December morning in 1872, making us witnesses to wonder. And so our journey with the Mary Celeste draws toward its close. Like a ship approaching harbor after a long voyage across mysterious waters, we have sailed together through the facts and theories, the investigations and speculations, the reality and legend of this most enduring maritime mystery. Now, as the evening deepens and sleep calls to you like a distant lighthouse, let us reflect on what we have discovered in our gentle exploration. The Mary Celeste teaches us that some stories are more powerful for their unanswered questions than they would be with neat conclusions. In our daily lives, we are surrounded by explanations, solutions, and definitive answers. We live in an age when information travels at the speed of light, when mysteries are solved by forensic science and satellite imagery, when the unknown corners of our world grow smaller each day. Yet here, floating through time like a ship through eternal waters, is a reminder that uncertainty can be beautiful. The Mary Celeste has given us more than 150 years of wonder, a gift that would have been impossible if her mystery had been solved on that December day in 1872. Her questions have proven more valuable than any answers could have been. Think of Captain Benjamin Briggs, Sarah, and little Sophia as they sail beyond the horizon of history. They have become more than historical figures. They have become symbols of the human journey itself, voyaging into unknown waters, making decisions with incomplete information, trusting in their judgment and each other as they navigate the vast ocean of existence. Their story reminds us that courage comes in many forms. It takes courage to set sail across an ocean in a wooden ship, trusting in wind and weather and the skills of human hands. It takes courage to bring your family on such a journey, to believe that love and care can create safety even in the vastness of the sea. And perhaps it took a different kind of courage to make whatever decision led to the Mary Celeste sailing on without them. The ship herself has become a gentle ghost, drifting not just through the Atlantic waters of 1872, but through our collective imagination. She reminds us that mystery and wonder have their own value, that not every question needs an answer, and that some stories are more beautiful when they trust us to complete them with our own thoughts and dreams. As you prepare for sleep tonight, let the Mary Celeste carry away the concerns and certainties of your day. Like the crew who launched their lifeboat into unknown waters, you too are about to embark on a journey into the unknown, the mysterious realm of dreams and rest. Your conscious mind, like a careful captain, will soon hand over control to deeper currents, allowing you to drift through the night on tides of imagination and renewal. The ocean that surrounds the Mary Celeste in our minds is the same vast blue that connects all shores, all times, all stories. It is the ocean of human experience, deep enough to hold all our questions, wide enough to encompass all possibilities, gentle enough to rock us into peaceful sleep. Listen now to the soft sounds that surround the Mary Celeste in your imagination. The whisper of wind through her rigging, the gentle lap of waves against her hull, the distant call of seabirds crossing empty skies. These are the sounds of solitude without loneliness, of mystery without fear, of questions without urgency. The Mary Celeste asks nothing of us except wonder. She demands no solutions, requires no explanations, insists on no conclusions. She simply sails on through time, carrying her beautiful mystery like precious cargo, sharing it with anyone willing to stand quietly on the dock of imagination and watch her pass. In a world that often seems too loud, too fast, too filled with answers that satisfy no one, the Mary Celeste offers us the gift of peaceful uncertainty. She shows us that it is possible to be comfortable with not knowing, to find rest in questions rather than answers, to discover that mystery itself can be a form of truth. So let her sail on through your dreams tonight, her white sails catching starlight, her gentle wake disturbing nothing more than the surface of sleep. Let Captain Briggs and his family continue their eternal voyage through the peaceful waters of memory and imagination. Let the crew of the Dei Gratia continue to call out across the years, their voices echoing with the wonder of discovery. The Mary Celeste has been patient with our questions for more than a century. She has carried our theories and speculations like passengers, never complaining about their weight, never demanding that they pay for passage with certainty. She simply sails on, offering passage to anyone willing to embark on a journey where the destination is less important than the traveling. And now, dear friend, as our story draws to its close like sunset on calm waters, Let the Mary Celeste carry you gently towards sleep. Her mystery is your mystery now, her peaceful questions your lullaby, her eternal voyage, your passage into the restful realm of dreams. The sea remembers everything and forgets nothing. It holds the Mary Celeste in its vast memory, along with all the ships that have ever sailed, all the stories that have ever been told, all the mysteries that have ever blessed us with their beautiful uncertainties. Sleep well, gentle voyager. The Mary Celeste sails on through the night, her lanterns lit not with fire, but with wonder, her course set not by compass, but by imagination, her cargo not of alcohol for distant markets, but of questions for dreaming minds. Tomorrow will bring its own shores, its own horizons, its own mysteries to explore. But tonight, let the Mary Celeste be your ship, mystery your ocean, and peaceful uncertainty your guide to the gentle harbor of sleep. Fair winds and following seas, dear friend. May your dreams be filled with the same peaceful wonder that surrounds the Mary Celeste as she sails forever through the quiet waters of mystery, carrying her beautiful questions into the eternal night.